This beautiful young woman is about to go on trial for her life, accused of the savage, frenzied murder of her ex-boyfriend.
I know that I'm innocent. God knows I'm innocent. Travis knows I'm innocent.
She's talking about Travis Alexander.
It looked like a normal camera, scratched, left behind, the kind of thing you'd toss in a drawer and forget. But when someone pulled the card, the last photo didn't feel like a memory. It felt like evidence. Because in each of these stories, the final images didn't just show what happened, they changed what everyone thought the story was. The camera that turned a tragic fall into a murder case. It started as a violent crime scene that almost didn't have a timeline. In 2008, Travis Alexander was found dead in his home in Mesa, Arizona. It looked brutal, it looked personal, but the question was, what exactly happened in his final hours? Detectives searched the house, collecting the usual things. Then they noticed something out of place. A digital camera inside the washing machine. Someone had tried to wash it. The memory card looked ruined. But when forensics pulled the data, images began to appear. First, ordinary photos, pictures of Travis in the shower, then images taken just minutes before he died. The last photos captured him alive. The later ones showed parts of the attack. Suddenly, investigators weren't guessing anymore. They had a visual timeline. Who was there, what they were doing, and when it happened. In court, those recovered pictures became some of the most powerful evidence because the last images on that camera didn't come from a security system. They came from inside the house, inside the bathroom, inside the final moments. The story stopped being "we think we know what happened." It became "here it is." And in the next case, the camera wasn't hidden in a washing machine. It was sitting in plain sight in a Facebook post. The selfie that revealed the weapon. At first, it looked like a normal night out. In 2015, Brittney Gargol posted a selfie with her friend before going out in Saskatoon, Canada. They're smiling, dressed up, standing together. Nothing about the photo looks like evidence. Hours later, Brittney was found dead on a road outside the city. For nearly 2 years, the case stalled. Then investigators went back to the photo, not for the faces, for the details. In the picture, one of the friends is wearing a belt. When police compared that image to the crime scene, they noticed something hard to ignore. A belt found near Brittney's body looked just like the one in the selfie. The photo became a key piece in building the case because it didn't just show who she was with that night. It showed what they were wearing and what could have been used in the attack. Eventually, her friend Cheyenne Rose Antoine pleaded guilty to manslaughter. The selfie, taken to show off a night out, quietly helped hold someone accountable. The last casual picture before everything went wrong ended up helping explain how it did. And in the next story, the final photos weren't taken by someone else. They were taken by the victim, seconds before the danger reached him. The final bear photos on a hiker's phone. This one starts as a normal hike. In 2014, 22-year-old student Darsh Patel went walking with friends in a New Jersey nature preserve. They noticed a black bear in the distance. Instead of backing away immediately, Darsh took out his phone. He snapped photos as the bear came closer. Those photos ended up being the last images he ever took. When he didn't make it back, searchers went looking. They found his phone. On it were clear pictures of the bear, first at a distance, then closer. Investigators later used the timestamps and images to understand what happened. They could see how close the animal got. They could see that the bear's attention was on the group. They could confirm it wasn't random. The bear had followed them. The photos were eventually released to the public as part of the investigation's record. They're hard to look at, not because they show the attack, they don't, but because you know what comes next, and he didn't. In this case, the last photos turned a vague, frightening story into something concrete. They showed why the group started to run. They showed how fast the situation changed, and they became part of a rare documented case of a fatal bear attack in that state. In the next story, a lost camera didn't explain how someone died. It explained how he lived right before he did, and gave his family something they thought they'd never see. The GoPro pulled from a lake that gave a family answers. 2 years after a drowning, a YouTuber was diving in a Tennessee lake, looking for interesting finds. He expected the usual things: phones, sunglasses, random junk. Instead, he found a GoPro at the bottom. When he checked the footage, it wasn't just random clips. It showed a young man, smiling and joking with friends at a waterfall, swimming, laughing, living a normal day. Then the video stopped. The camera belonged to Richard Ragland, a 22-year-old who had drowned there in 2017. For his parents, the death had always been a story told in reports and phone calls. They knew what happened, but they had never seen his final day. When the diver tracked them down and returned the footage, the camera did something no report could do. It gave them his voice, his expressions, his last ordinary moments, not as a victim, but as their son. The last videos on that GoPro didn't solve a crime. They changed what the day meant to the people who lost him. It stopped being only the worst day of their lives. It became a real day, with laughter they could finally hear for themselves. And in the next story, a recovered camera didn't just show people living. It showed the last few minutes before an avalanche erased an entire group from view. The avalanche footage recovered from a climber's cameras. In 2019, a team of 8 climbers set out toward Nanda Devi East in the Indian Himalayas. They were experienced. They were prepared. Then they stopped responding. Search teams eventually found evidence of a massive avalanche. Later, as bodies were recovered, rescuers found something else, a camera containing video from the group's final climb. Officials released a description of the footage. It showed the climbers roped together, moving across steep terrain in challenging weather, just minutes before the avalanche hit. The camera did not record the impact itself, but it showed enough: the conditions, the slope, the line they chose. For families and investigators, it turned a blank space into a sequence. This is how they were moving. This is what it looked like. This is how close they came before everything changed. The video didn't assign blame. It did something quieter, but just as important, it let the last part of the story be seen. The camera that helped prove a crash wasn't an accident. Our final story is different. This time, the camera wasn't recovered by chance. It was the point. In 2021, YouTuber and former Olympian Trevor Jacob uploaded a video showing his small plane losing power over California. In the video, he jumps out with a parachute. The plane crashes into remote hills. Multiple cameras, including one strapped to him, capture the descent and impact. He titled the video like a survival story. But investigators noticed details that didn't fit a typical emergency. The FAA and later federal prosecutors reviewed the footage frame by frame. They saw that he was already wearing a parachute, that he didn't appear to follow standard emergency procedures, that cameras were positioned to capture dramatic angles. The video that made the stunt popular online became the same footage used to build a case against him. In 2023, Jacob admitted he had deliberately crashed the plane and then misled investigators. He was sentenced to federal prison. The last frames on his cameras weren't just content, they were evidence, showing that what looked like an accident wasn't. A last photo is supposed to be a memory, but sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's the one thing that won't let a story stay vague. A washed-out camera in a machine, a selfie with one detail that doesn't fit, a phone left in the woods, a GoPro at the bottom of a lake, a helmet cam on a mountain, a stunt video that turns into a confession. Because once an image exists, it doesn't care what anyone says later. It just sits there, quietly holding the moment the story was still honest. If you want more real stories like this, subscribe to Rapid Rank, and I'll see you in the next one.